Just when you thought traction was at its all-time luxury, little did you know tonight we are going to be experiencing a little bit of slipping and a little bit of sliding, as here at PT Autosports eSeries Season 2, Round 2, we head over to the Daytona circuit for a little bit of rallycross. This is going to be an exciting one here on the Global Sim Racing channel. I'm Mike Noss. Joined alongside me tonight is none other than Ozzy Puka. As I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly. I forgot to ask Ozzy on that. But Ozzy, as we get ready to get into the rallycross, of course, you being a little more versed in this field than myself, this being my first ever commentary in it, I am extremely excited to introduce you and also get to see some of these VW Beetles flying through the air.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Mike. And some of those Beetles, like, they can absolutely... It may be a humble Beetle, but they're packing 300 horsepower. They're packing four-wheel drive. They're packing all the torque and then some. So what you need, effectively, is to try and keep all the torque down and try and make it fly around this circuit.
Just under a mile in length. They each have a pretty even mix between pavement and dirt, and both kick off the lap with a quick chicane leading into a jump. One of the best places to pass is into the International Horseshoe, but curiously, this is also where the Joker lap is placed. Cutting off that final hairpin, it doesn't remove a huge chunk of the lap, but it certainly can play a significant role in the races. Expect it to be used when things get frustrating, since overtakes are usually pretty tough to execute. There are portions of the track which are very tightly barricaded on each side, and it's not uncommon for drivers to wind up shedding a bit of bodywork through there. As you'd expect, it's probably one of the worst places for people to get aggressive, since it can all go wrong in a flash. Daytona's NASCAR roots may dominate its image, but time and again, this track shows its versatility by adapting to just about any type of racing out there.
And now, as we can see this lovely circuit and a bit of a teaser on what tonight is going to hold, we see this is the 9-corner circuit with a Joker lap. We are down in Daytona Beach, Florida, here on a track opened back in 1959. The length just under 1 mile, a little over 1.3 kilometers, with 9 corners here, and a lot of dirt, a lot of tarmac, but most importantly, that single jump that we're going to be seeing these little VWs go flying over tonight. As I mentioned briefly, it is entertaining. It's about 25 to 30% dirt on this circuit, and with one Joker turn through turn 1. And actually, why don't we go ahead and throw it over here to Ozzy, as he will bring up a little bit more about that Joker lap as well, and just talking track here at Daytona.
Yep. We may be enjoying Super Bowl weekend here, especially you guys in America, but son, that just means it's 1 week to Daytona 500. But before that, we're doing some rallycross here in Daytona. So you're looking at Joker and you're wondering, what is it? Well, it's effectively a shortcut. Everybody takes that Joker once during their heat. It's mandatory, they take a shortcut, and because it's a shortcut, rather than what you have in European rallycross, for example, the longer way around, means that it changes the strategy a little bit. So you can utilize those couple of seconds gained whenever you want during a race, usually during the first lap, but really any time you want. And aside from that, what you have to be aware of here, in iRacing rallycross especially, is the lack of grip on the gravel section, because these are basically road tires. That means you won't see any of that full-on sideways, full opposite lock action. What you'll see instead is managing all that power, trying to get it on the road and trying to go around the circuit as effectively as possible, including the jumps. And those jumps can be deceivingly difficult. If you hit it at the wrong angle, if you hit it too sideways, you're just gonna end up essentially bouncing back the opposite way. Bouncing left when you're supposed to go right, or bouncing right when you're supposed to go left, and that can ruin your day in a hurry.
It absolutely can, and of course, being these cars having four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive flying through the air and trying to get the recovery, we also have that crucial final corner where you're going to be having that singular handbrake turn, pretty much should be the only handbrake turn out there on track. And then Ozzy was mentioning before the broadcast as well, the drivers gonna need to work on their short shifting, trying to make sure they deliver that power as efficiently as humanly possible. Otherwise, you're gonna be having some wheel spin and potentially facing the wrong way as a result. But now qualifying is over, so why don't we take a look here at the standings, and it's Benjamin Nelson on pole position ahead of Garrett Maines. This is championship standings, my apologies, as this of course is going to be the overall driver standings. Benjamin Nelson took home first position last week with Garrett Maines in second. We had Andy oh my goodness, we went over these before the broadcast. Trupino in third with Daniel Falkingham in fourth, Hugo Allen in fifth with Matteo Kunzer in sixth, seventh here belonging to Luis Belecki, eighth for Dalton Zavadil, my apologies again, Nate Stewart ninth, and Mark Anthony in P10, 16 points off the good. We haven't explained the format here tonight either. This is going to be the race details. Round 2 of 5. The car track revealed 1 hour before the start, which makes it very interesting for these drivers. And now the car being, of course, that VW Beetle with about 300 brake horsepower. And the top 2 of each heat will make it into the final. And that's going to be 4 heats total here tonight with 32 drivers, 8 taking part in each. And the driver partnership worth $250,000. Now, you might be asking, what am I talking about? Let me explain that here just briefly. We, PT Autosports, are a motorsport team dedicated to providing on merit-based opportunities for talented but underfunded drivers, engineers, mechanics, and motorsport professionals. The eSeries that we're running today concerns with a prize pool for a ticket to the Aspiring Drivers Shootout, where 8 drivers will race on a track in New Jersey Motorsports Park to win a chance to partner and go real-life racing up to $250,000. Incredible opportunities on go for tonight, but that, of course, or rather throughout the entirety of this championship. But tonight, we have Daytona, and with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left in qualifying, why don't we get down to the track and start seeing some lap times here, Ozzy?
Absolutely so, and Garrett Maines, unsurprisingly 10, currently holding down to the pole position with 3.5 minutes left. If you don't know Garrett Maines, who we're doing right now, he used to drive in the iRacing Rallycross World Championship. That's right, this man has World Championship experience from this particular discipline. And as you saw on the screen, they are revealing the car and track combos to these drivers 1 hour before the race starts. So good luck to anybody who is trying to master in 1 hour what Garrett Maines has learned over and over these years. Now, true, we haven't had a World Championship of Rallycross in iRacing since 2022, but it's just like riding a bike, really. You don't forget the basics of any particular discipline, especially when you got 1 hour to remind yourself.
Yeah, and there we just saw as well, speaking of drivers having to remind themselves, Luis Belicki getting exactly what you had mentioned kind of before we got into this here tonight, the jump, all sorts of wrong. And now looking at Sean Fitzgerald out on track going through that sector 2, and now we're into sector 3 through the final corner, seeing exactly where he is going to fall. And just taking a look at the timings, actually did not see where he ended up finishing here. Alessandro Rayner in currently 15th without a time on the board, still looking to set one here. Now, Ozzy, here in, of course, whoa, goodness, Alessandro getting it all wrong.
Yeah, so what happened there to Alessandro is that he was too compressed heading to the jump. So it's exactly what I was talking about. When you come into the jump, the car compresses, and then it rapidly decompresses as you're going over the hip of the jump. So too compressed and you're sideways, it bounces and can very quickly go into the opposite direction. And of course, when all 4 wheels are in the air, there is nothing at all that you can do about that car aside from, well, just hold on to a rough landing.
No, steering only works when you are planted on the ground. When you're flying through the air, you can turn the wheel all you would like. It's just not going to do much of anything. There we see Garrett Maines delivering as he truly is expected to. Currently 7/10 ahead of the rest of the field here, just over 7/10, and looking to improve as well, but do not count out Andy, as he's currently sitting in second. He's not improving on this lap as it stands, but there's still a few more laps left to go. 57 seconds in qualifying. It doesn't sound like a lot for a circuit racing fan, but with lap times of only 38 seconds, unless you find yourself facing the wrong way, you should be able to set one more lap.
Yeah, and Trupiano there can just bouncing a little bit too much over those high curves that you see lining the edge of the circuit, just taking a bit too much of a chance. And despite being rugged 4-wheel drive rallycross machines, they are really, they don't like going over the edge. They don't like bumps too much when they're so sudden. And we're gonna see a lot more of driver just making a mistake over the jump, especially as it's a flat sweeper effectively that leads to the jump. It's very easy to go too fast. And we have 10 seconds to go, and Trupiano, I don't think, has enough time to get another lap going here either. So you can see on board him here, and that second apex, the car wants to turn a little bit too much. And you kind of want to flick it in, but you don't want to get it sideways, otherwise you're in trouble.
Here, Derek Swank with Charles Wembley coming home in 6th position. Down to row 4, Zachary Mertis alongside Aaron Ramon for P8.
Yep, and this is heat number 1 of 4, and what you need to know, 8 drivers in each heat, and top 2 of each heat will advance to the final.
And now, of course, Garrett and Jacob being in the same heat together, Bryce Weaver as well. Only 2 can move forward here. Who is it going to be? This is one thing I love about watching real-life rallycross racing, is you have 8 drivers, pretty much 6 drivers, 4 drivers. It depends on, of course, the championship, but it's real tight racing. It's close. And of course, we were talking as well before the broadcast, the driving standards. For everyone that's used to circuit racing, we might be seeing a little bit more contact than we are used to for the most part. However, I tell you what, Ozzy, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the contact standards for tonight?
Oh yeah, so real quick, usually the rallycross rules, don't bump somebody up the rear, but they're gonna be trading paint when they go side to side. So a little bit of bumping is allowed, a little bit of scraping is allowed. There's gonna be contact, it's a contact sport, but there's also that fine line between, you know, hitting somebody and wrecking somebody.
Exactly, you gotta be very...
Really.
Yeah, no, actually, that's a great example. It's about not giving them a bad bump, about, you know, expecting to trade a little paint, making other people's days as hard as possible. But other than that, of course, just trying to keep everyone alive and to the checkered flag will be the plan. But we all know that no plan survives first contact, especially with the enemy. And here at the Daytona Rallycross circuit, and in these little 300 horsepower, 630 Newton meter VW Beetles, we have an absolute show ahead of us here. And of course, the drivers just gritting up here, getting ready to go, taking their final sips of water. This is where the nerves are at their all-time high. And there we can see 10 minutes now on the clock. That's going to be quite a few laps as there's bit of a jump start here, and there we go, go as the green flag waves, and it looks like immediately 3 abreast here briefly, but Garrett commanding the inside line and taking the lead. Behind that, Jacob Bradley takes home second, Bryce Weaver in third and slotting into the background. Side by side between Drew and Charles Wembley, and it's over the jump for the first time, and everybody is mostly in shape. Couple cars stranded to the back. Aaron Ramon, I think, found the worst of the grass.
And Wire as well, Bryce Wire here, you saw him in that blue livery car, heading sideways over into the rough stuff, and you don't want to get into that darker gravel, that rough stuff, because if you get hurt, you have no grip, and you just keep going where the momentum leads you, and oftentimes that's into the wall.
And that was Drew Swank, excuse me, that made it into the wall. Garrett Maines leading us away on lap 1. Jacob Bradley in second. Noah Ingram Harrison third. And behind that, scrapping left and right. You got to remember as well, it's only the top 2 that make it through each heat. And there's a spinner ahead from the top 2. That's Charles Wembley that's gone around and handed over. No, that was from top 3. Still going to be a little bit of daylight potentially here. Zachary Menser to the inside. No, backs out. This is the only handbrake turn. Switchback attempt. Is it going to be enough? No, it looks like he's going to have to back out. No, he doesn't. All right.
Yeah, getting a great exit off that hairpin. That's one of the best passing opportunities here at Daytona, is getting that crossover, that switchback, as you said, over the hairpin, getting a better exit. And when it's tarmac on the launch, you can get the launch of a much straighter line. You can get the power down better and sweeping flat out effectively over the what we call the main straight in quotation marks. And that means Mertes is able to get that position and is now running back, and Bryce Wyerton spinning once again. Bradley, Ingram Harrison and Ramon 1040 final advancing spot.
And now, yes, indeed, looking at everybody behind, this is not what you really want to see in terms of the squabbling for the lower positions. You want to see the squabbling up at the top. And currently, I think Ingram Harrison and Bradley might be in it right now, but here's Wembley down to the inside. This is going to be a pretty, well, textbook maneuver, as there was a mistake, actually, it looks like there, from Ramon. Garrett Maines, though, still leading by over 3.5 seconds, and that is currently allowing the 2 behind to have a little bit of a bout. Noah Ingram Harrison and Jacob Bradley. Are they going to come into grips here? That's what I'm wondering. No, is the short answer.
No, I think made a mistake in this lap. Something happened because he's lost about 3.5 seconds to Jacob Bradley over the course of this lap, and that means that he's gonna end up losing, maybe falling back into that pack we were following earlier with Mercedes, Wembley and Ramon potentially too. So that's not what Noah Ingram Harrison, one of the best supported drivers in this series, it has to be said. Always fans of Noah in the chat. That's not what they want to see. That's not what not what Noah wants to see either. Just trying to get back into it. I'm trying to see if he has any damage on the car. None that I can see so far. Just needs to get the grip back going and get that confidence back.
Yeah, previous lap, 5 seconds slower than Jacob Bradley. That is obviously not characteristic of Noah. His best lap overall is a 141.8 to a 140.6 of Bradley. So even with that, a second difference in the fastest lap overall, needing to make up some pace. Here's Bryce Wire taking that Joker lap that we were talking about before. So this is going to be a bit shorter of a lap. Typically for some rally courses, I suppose, maybe not typically all of them, the Joker lap can be wider. You look at some other racing series like Formula E, for example, where they have the sort of high boost mode, I can't remember, attack mode is what they call it there, which is going to lose you lap time overall, but of course you're going to be gaining it over the long term. This is a little bit different though, Ozzy.
Yeah, it is, and you can see the differences even on iRacing. Once you go to the Hale Rallycross circuit in Norway, which is on the service as well, Lankebonen, they call it by another name, and that has the European-style choker lap, which means that on the outside of the first corner there's a choker with a bit of a chicane, and that takes a longer time around. So what this shorter lap time means, you need to use it strategically. And oftentimes, especially with the heats being a bit longer than you 5 or 6 laps, here we have 15 minutes, which means it's a longer event. You gotta use that effectively for overtaking purposes. You save that if you need to overtake somebody that you know that you're faster than, and make sure that you can use that time gain to run away.
Yeah, exactly, and it's all about just maximizing your minimum speed for the short term here, which will gain you a little bit of a long-term advantage, but of course, keep in mind, everybody does have to take that Joker lap, so it's really when you do it. Zachary Mertz there getting a little out of shape, a heavy landing as he cased the jump. Almost lost it, but he managed to wrestle the octopus back under control and keep it on, I was going to say the tarmac, but no, on the dirt.
Yeah, and that's something that often happens. You can see the cars just... this is very alien to a lot of drivers in how the car behaves in difficult situations. Like the car is a little bit more... it's softer than a lot of road racing cars, for example. The dampers are a bit slower to react because they have to deal with all the forces. They have to deal with these jumps. And that's a jump that would break most racing cars. It doesn't do a lick if you take it right to this rallycross car. But that also means that once the car gets a little bit loose underneath you need to do different things. You need to play with the pedals a little bit more. Just basic opposite lock ain't gonna do much. And a lot of drivers will be afraid to use too much of that too, because once it grabs that grip, as all-wheel drive cars tend to do, then you're just heading into the opposite direction. Essentially the pendulum effect working against you, as we're watching Merdes and Windley now 10 in fight for 4th position.
Yeah, these may be average road cars by definition, but as you can see on circuit, they are certainly anything but average. With about 300 brake horsepower onto the wheel here for these light versions of the light versions of the VW Beetle. Of course, they still are generating a ton of power, 2,000cc engines. You know that engine's big when you have to rate it in cc's rather than in actual liters, but a 2.0 liter basically is what that's going to be equivalent to. And the light version still with that full all-wheel drive system. Again, just about getting that power down, like you said, and working those short shifts, especially on this dirt here. And these two really having a nice little ding-dong battle, but unfortunately, it's not accomplishing much, is it, Ozzy?
No, it's not, but it's also important for the points overall, because top 2 advance. Oh no, Murdy is just a little bit too close to that wall which hangs out on you. It sticks out from the wall and just taking a little bit wide. I bet Zachary was looking at that wall over the previous laps, over the practice, thinking, I don't want to get too close to that, but here when you're in a tight racing situation, you take a bit more of a chance, and this time it came back to bite him. Anyway, as I was just about to say, regarding, I actually forgot what I was about to say. Check up Brad. Oh.
Yes, I wanted to point out, you mentioned one of the factors that's absolutely crucial in racing in general, and that's vision. You mentioned that, so that the drivers may be looking at the wall potentially, and of course the famous saying, as old as time, or well, as old as cars are, is your eyes, or your car goes where your eyes go. So if you're looking at that wall lap after lap after lap, it's only a matter of time before you actually drive into it, because that's where your car is most likely to be placed if that's where your eyes are. Again, your car goes where your eyes go. It's a true statement.
Yeah, so you don't want to get target impaired. Target fixation is what you don't want to do. Especially, I've done a bit of skiing, downhill skiing, and of course regular sweaty skiing as well in my life. And what you don't want to do is look at the tree. So it's the same thing with cars. What you don't want to do in rallying, for example, is look at the tree, or when you're in circuit racing, look at the wall. You know it's there, it's sort of a passive thing that's there, but don't look into it, because otherwise you're gonna more easily drive into it, as weird as that sounds. Watching Garrett Maines, who's not gonna find any walls, hopefully, in this race. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, the positions are important because that's gonna be their final points from this event if they don't have a chance to make it to top 2. So even if you're fighting for 4th or 5th, it's not an advancing spot, but it is their final points from the event. So effectively, you're already fighting for final points, because once again, no consolation hits here. It's just gonna be 4 hits and a final.
Yep, exactly. No last chance qualifier, no consolation to have any of these drivers. Holy smokes, Garrett here. I was actually about to make a comment and saying that he's been waxing lyrical for these past few laps and just throwing down the fastest lap after fastest lap pretty much. And the way that he delivers his power specifically through that corner, I would love to see the onboard of it, and maybe in the future we'll be able to in the finals. But Garrett Maines, as he comes around the final sector now, or rather begins, I think, his final lap here into the Joker lap corner and onto the back straight for his final time. He'll take the jump once more and then take victory for race 1 and find himself one of 2 drivers in the finals, the second of which looking like Jacob Bradley. More than likely here from Indiana, the number 50 car should be able to
Familiar to most of them, and once you look into the point of the series and being able to essentially hand out racing opportunities for the best drivers, you also want to see how they learn a completely different discipline. That tells you a lot about the mental capacity of a driver and their innate talent too.
Absolutely does, and here is the talent on display. Second place, 20 seconds over Noah Ingram Harrison. Charles Wembley took home 4th position with Zachary Mertis in 5th. Bryce Ware in 6th with Erin Ramon in 7th, and Derek Swank rounding out last but not least, as he did not start the race, it looks like.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, unable to really get going in this event, but we still have 3 more heats to go. Right, so now that Garrett Maines is done waxing lyrical, I think we're gonna be able to see some closer battles for the lead as well. You see these cars in the next heat already lining up and awaiting the start signal.
Indeed, they are, as we see sort of not 2x2 Noah's Ark formation. It's a little bit different of a starting grid here with the 2x3x2, 3x2x3. How do you, what is the term for this, Ozzy?
A mess.
A mess. That is the official term. It is a mess, folks. That's how these rallycross races
It's a
start.
Staggered grid, I think is the official
Staggered grid, yes, there we go. That is a much more official term than a mess. But running very, very shortly here. Apologies to any little lag spikes. Hope everything, we're getting the broadcasting fixed. Hashtag blame Daniel in chat for anyone that is curious. No, a big shout out to Dana Costello on cameras. And of course, Dougie Beard providing our cameras for tonight, our director Dana Costello and cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But here we go, folks. 10 minutes on the clock, and we are green flag running, and it is a chaotic start, to say the least. Every car getting away quite well, but who is it going to be on the whole shot? It looks like it's going to be Andy Trapino through the mix, and behind him, Daniel Falkingham with Sean C. Fitzgerald. But over the jump, this is where everything can change in the blink of an eye, and it looks like it has. Two drivers. Is that going to be Roman and Hinz that have made it off the track here and didn't quite make it over the jump the first time around? Everyone else, though, still green flag running.
Yeah, so that's the difficulty with the first lap. You effectively go around a hairpin from the staggered start, and then you have a right-left sweeper to navigate into a jump, and it tightens up on you. So it's a very, very difficult situation to try and deal with, to try and work with for all of these drivers. But I hope that they'll be able to get the subsequent laps working out better in the future.
And of course, with currently Sean Fitzgerald also hunting down the rest here, as again, we do apologize. Oh, a big contact there. Who was that? Was that the two back runners once more? I think it unfortunately was. And those two getting into another bout of contact here on the second lap.
Yeah, so Rajesh and Rohorn and Raman, they're losing a lot of time. You can see it on the left-hand side of your screen as well. Rajesh now 15 seconds behind the top 5, but it's still a great fight up there in the front. You can see, oh, Fitzgerald just landing way too hard after the jump, bouncing up those rebound dampers. They were never designed to deal with quite that. Just too much heat over the jump, spinning around and able to get it back going. But unfortunately for him, losing effectively his chance to advance from here, dropping all the way down to 5th position, some 10 seconds back from the lead.
Yeah, and that just an absolute gutting bout of contact there. Now drivers taking their Joker laps. Was that going to be Falkingham, or was that one of the back markers, actually, I think, taking their Joker? And yeah, now Trapino having to negotiate through traffic, but that is a very damaged VW, and having to move off to the side there and just allow the leaders on by. Falkingham and Trapino still able to go for the run here, and well, looks like they're going to be on for a battle for a while.
Yeah, they are, and Christian Heinz, you can see there, by the way, it was Rahman who was smoking very heavily there at the side of the track. I think taking the Joker just to get out of the way, that car's probably not gonna finish this event. But Christian Heinz then, just behind Rodriguez as they work their way past the damaged car, fighting for 4th place, and now taking the Joker quite early with 7 minutes remaining. And I think this is effectively Christian Heinz saying, okay, I got more pace than this guy. I can work my way past Rodriguez there, but Rodriguez then, they touch over the jump. Wow.
Gutting between the two, but keeping it very tight right now. And again, needing to look forward. These two getting held up on each other and getting in the mix. You really want to be battling for second, as of course the top two are the only two that are going to be having their way into the heat. But every point matters. We've already established that in Heinz and Rodriguez. Well, they want it all to themselves here and going to be giving each other a ding-dong battle, but still Joker laps needing to be taken. Nobody, though, going for it on this occasion. It looks like, I know, Ozzy, you had predicted that everyone would be doing it on the first lap, but it seems like, for the most part, a lot of the drivers doing it on the last lap, potentially.
Yeah, I think what they're doing here is trying to save it up for the overtake, so it's a bit of a different strat. Usually what you want to do in more... when you see it at the World Championship level, for example, the drivers at the front want to extend that gap towards the drivers in the rear as quick as possible. And more importantly, they don't want anybody behind them to take the choker lap and end up in front of them, because that's going to lose them a lot of time and potentially lose them the chance to advance as well. Whereas here, it's a bit more of a free form. A lot of these drivers don't have that experience from tightly contested rallycross events. They don't have that meta, as they call it, down yet. So they're sort of improvising on the fly. And as for Garrett Mays in the previous heat, why he didn't take it right from the get-go? Well, simple. He didn't need to. He was so fast anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And now looking at our top too. This is where I'm very going to be interested in who takes their Joker lap when, who pulls the trigger on what occasion. Falkingham has just sort of been sitting in the background. His lap times, though, are quite solid, about 5/10 slower, though, on the previous lap than Andy Trapino. So needing a little bit more pace there just to gain up to the back bumper and potentially go for a little door banging send. But the gap ever increasing. That is not the same story here between Hines and Rodriguez, or is it? As holy smokes, not the best landing, but hey, if it works, it works.
Yep, that can damage the car though. It can effectively, when you land too hard, especially in the front of the car, that can damage the engine, cut you power down a little bit. It can damage the aerodynamics of the car, damage the suspension. So you don't want to be landing. You don't want to be landing quite so deep, even if it looked from my perspective that Hines was able to capitalize on it quite well. And Rodriguez, who took his choker lap earlier, now getting passed by Hines, who is utilizing that advantage very well and being able to take the final podium position away. Unfortunately for him, not the advancing position. As they are actually quite close for the lead as well. Looking, wow.
Woo! A nice little under over there. That's actually a mistake, unfortunately, from Hines that gives the position right back to Bryce Rodriguez. So all that hard work immediately undone. The gap, though, 7.8 seconds to Andy Trapino. So it will be, I don't want to say insurmountable. Anything can happen in racing, and it normally does, as we've seen incidents left and right, especially when there's a jump involved. But it does seem that Falkingham might have gotten what it needs. In fact, I'd love to take a look at Falkingham now, because he's closing that gap up to Trapino, and we might actually have a lead battle, which is exactly what Bryce Rodriguez needs to bring him back into this.
Yeah, so here you can see Falkingham 10 right on cue, and here you can see Trapino in the 71 machine just ahead of him. So if these guys are smart, and I know they are smart, they wouldn't have made it to the series without being smart. They are just effectively playing it easy now. They got an 8-second gap behind them. They're both gonna advance. Now it's just a matter of which position. Of course, that position is gonna be also your starting position for the final heat. And it's gonna be quite important because Falkingham right now is holding on to what will be a second starting position, front row starting position for the final. Whereas Trapino will get, I believe, what will be 6th position in the final if it goes the way it is. And you know how difficult it is to pass here, so Trapino would very much want that lead back. Let's see how hard they battled during these last 2.5 minutes and whether or not it gives opportunities to the likes of Rodriguez, Hines, and Fitzgerald to potentially capitalize on any mistakes these guys make.
Well, so we saw Falkingham on the previous lap take his Joker lap and take the lead of this race. Now, Trapino, I still think, has to do the same, so he has that shortcut lap. Oh, you got to be careful, though. Don't get out of shape on the jump. Ooh. What a save as he manages to get that car back under wraps. He lost a lot of time. In fact, lost about a second to the gap there of Falkingham, which might be the difference. You mentioned the fact that the starting order, the gridding positions are going to be determined. Obviously, the top 4 drivers are going to start in the top 4, and then if you finish second, well, you're going to be in the second 4 drivers from the other heats. So you'll be in either 4th through 8th for the best starting position. So massive difference just from finishing in 1st and 2nd. And has that gap become too much? Has Andy thrown it away on the previous lap?
Yeah, potentially will. That's the kind of mistake you don't want to make. It's so easy to do too, because as we've seen the difference between running the optimal line, running that smooth line, and getting a little bit out of shape. As you can see in front of them, Hines as well, making a mistake right after the jump, and as a result of that, having to let Bryce Rodriguez pass then the New York-based driver, getting back onto that podium position, at least for now. Still 1 minute left.
1 minute to go. Falkingham leads over Trapino, over Rodriguez, Hines, Fitzgerald, Drawhorn, Rajesh, and Rahman. My apologies. Down in the back. This is a nice little ding-dong scrap for 4th position as we go side by side. A little bit of door banging as well. Some contact there with the A pillar and the C pillar from Hines and Rodriguez. 1 lap to go after this one. It's down to the wire right now, and everyone wants the highest place position. Hines currently has a VW-sized issue in front of him. Can he dispatch it? Also, can Trupiano find a move done here on the final lap? It looks like the gap might just be a little too much. He took his Joker on the previous. It cut it down to 1 second after all was said and done. But Daniel Falkingham, strategic wonder, as we will say. Holy smokes. Andy needing new spinal surgery as he's going to be finishing this race up with a meatball flag. Well, not really, but sort of internally, I would say. Falkingham, though, rounds the final few corners now onto the back straight. And to take checkered flag for race 2 here tonight, or heat 2, he will be your victor and moving on into the finals.
Yep, same will be true for Andy Trupiano as well. And then there is the fight for third position, which is effectively Bryce Rodriguez and Christian Heinz there, looking very close coming into the last corner. Heinz will have potentially a chance to send it up to the inside, does not do so. Instead, braking a bit earlier, but just look at Bryce Rodriguez calculating that perfectly. Just braking a bit too late, it looked to me, but still able to get the run just on the outside of the circuit to finish home just ahead of Heinz 10.
And a brilliant display there, a dominant one as well. Again, we're really seeing the leaders sort of find their strides, not early on, and stretch their legs over the rest of the field. Thankfully, we did, of course, have that nice little two-way bout pretty much through the word go. So very entertaining throughout. Falkingham, though, will be the one to take victory. The number 39 on top with Trupiano. 2 seconds to the good there in second. Behind that, Bryce Rodriguez, third position with Christian Heinz in fourth. Sean C. Fitzgerald in fifth with Drawhorn down in sixth. Rajesh in seventh position, down 10 laps. And Rahman, unfortunately, down 12 laps after a DNF for eighth position. Still, though, of course, points being welcome to everyone for that, and every point will matter in this championship, but it is Falkingham and Trupiano that are going to move on. And as we go now down here, Ozzy, to the starting grid for the next race.
Yeah, Louis Bailike and Patrick Hingston 10 on the front row with Riley Stasny, Marc-Anthony Hinkson and Alessandro Ranieri 10 in second row. Remember, 3 drivers there. Then it's Anton Schoppler, Brandon William and Dustin Young rounding out the 8-driver field for heat number 3. And once again, top 2 drivers advance. And I should make a correction at this point. They have actually 2 choker laps in these events as opposed to 1 because of the length, I guess.
Gotcha. Okay, that adds a whole nother spicy meatball into this equation. So, of course, that's what that has been happening. We just haven't quite been seeing it necessarily. But this is the grid here. We can see all of the cars out there, the various colors. One thing I absolutely love, Ozzy, about this series is just seeing all of the little Porsches. Oh, goodness. I said to myself I wasn't going to do it, and I did it.
That's from Stuttgart.
The VWs, of course, not the Porsches, the VWs out there, but I love all the various colors that we see, the yellows, the greens, the blues, the reds. It's very nice.
It is very nice. And speaking of the liveries, they are very big on the Steam opportunities. And as part of each round of the eSeries, they have a livery designed by a different community member. And they're actually currently running a design contest with a $250 cash prize on their social media, where someone can design the label for a non-alcoholic motorsport-inspired beer that the PT team has just announced in partnership with Momentum Brew. And that's just a great opportunity, so make sure to check out the PD Autosport Series social media for more information on that. If you got a little bit of a graphic designer in you, if graphic design is your passion.
Oh, exactly. And some brilliant liveries out there. And we are go once more for Heat 3 tonight. And it's 3 abreast down to the first corner. We do see someone backing out, thankfully. And it's going to be, it looks like, Patrick Hingston in the lead. Behind that, Belke right behind. But over the jump for the first time, it's all sorts of out of shape there for, I think, Marc-Anthony. And everyone having to slot in the background. Someone there having a bit of an offing. And through, though, the rest of the field, green flag running, it's Patrick Hingston that's leading us away.
Yeah, Hingston from Stasny from Hingston. So that's not going to be confusing at all. Hingston, Stasny, Hingston. It kind of reminds me of a certain TV series called called Shorsey, where they had those very similar sounding names as well. But there you go, Stasny fighting for the second as we have one driver taken to the choker, I believe. That is Bailike taking the choker right from the get-go. First of his two.
Taking the lead now. Big pressure on the shoulders of Bilecki is now to the inside. I thought Stasny was going to go full send baseball onto Hingston. Thankfully, though, nobody dropped it like Aaron Judge in the World Series. Everyone's still firmly under wraps. Behind that, though, that is a dicey battle as Hingston tries to cover off Mark Anthony. And Anthony actually got a terrible run, which allowed Riley a potential opportunity to steal his position. Now, though, looking at Hingston on to second position, that's actually going to be Stasny taking his Joker lap, so getting out of pressure early himself. What do you think of this early Joker lap strategy?
Well, yeah, Hingston, Ranieri, and Hinkson, I believe, were there as well. You can see Stasny there side by side. It's a very effective strategy. You can see what it did to Louis Bailike, effectively getting all by himself into the lead, being able to extend that advantage. As we were talking in the previous heat, that's the usual way to do it. If you think you're faster, then take the choker, get the overtake done for free, effectively. And as we can see, Stasny taking a shortcut, that's going to be a slowdown penalty. So getting the overtake for free effectively and then running in the clear air and not having to worry about guys behind. So I think Hingston, Stasny, and everybody else is now out of choker distance. So Bailike just has to keep that pace up. Easier said than done, I know. Fastest lap so far, however. And then run away from everybody as they're stuck fighting for second, third, fourth, and fifth. Amazing race here between Stasny and Hingston.
Really is now Stasny's going to be having the inside line for the hairpin handbrake turn onto the accelerator. Very early goes Stasny. That's one of those crucial corners to get your short shift in. It's the only real handbrake corner on this circuit. Stasny has a pack of bees firmly in the background. He got a little tap to the rear. Stasny did the tap to the rear. My apologies here. And he is going to elect here to take his second Joker lap, at this stage.
Yeah, and a very long jump as well. You can see the guys taking more and more risks with that jump, and Stasny, you don't want to do that running wide onto the coarse gravel. It's kind of like getting in the rough at golf. I know that's a very middle-class reference of me, but still, getting into the rough at golf, you don't want to do that. You want to stay in the green, and in here, the same thing. You want to stay on that nice, light gravel whenever you are in the gravel sections. That's going to offer you so much more grip and so much more traction for those tires, and you're fighting for every little single bit of it. Drivers utilizing the choker and getting those done early side by side once again to the jump between these guys. No, I think Stasny has to back out.
Yeah, unfortunately not finding the light of day. I also want to take a look as well as we have a battle for P2. Oh my goodness, Stasny with enough midair time to be served wine on that flight. Patrick Hingston also found himself round. He was in a battle with Alessandro Rayner, and now those two, well, the final spot here for the transition position has been decided, at least for the time being. Also, I am absolutely trademarking transition position.
Yeah, it's a lovely word. I love that being able to getting served wine on a plane is a thing as well. I've never been drinking wine on a plane, but I know it's a thing. And here you can see the replay of the mistake by Patrick Hingston, which relegated him down from the advancing spot of second place down to third. So it's Bailike and Ranieri now in the advancing spots. As you can see, then William, I believe, no Schoppler getting all sorts of out of shape after the jump, something we've seen a lot of today. So despite these being short races, 10-minute heats, it's still a matter of making the least mistakes almost.
Yeah, and it's a fatiguing 10 minutes. I don't think anyone actually realizes how mentally locked in you have to be to drive these cars. They're so punchy. They're so violent. Look at, just when you come down there and the suspension goes all the way down to the bottom, it's basically a shock through your spine. Not literally, thankfully, in simulation, you don't have that quite. But if you are on a motion simulator, heck, you got to be careful. You might get thrown through your windshield. You never know.
Yeah, you can, or if you don't have a motion sim, then just to lift the sim rig like 2 meters or so up, and then have somebody hit the underside of it with a sledgehammer to get that proper experience. As we saw Patrick Hingston, unfortunately, there, even with a bigger mistake now, having to retire from this heat, I do believe. So that's gonna upgrade Stasny to P number 3 and Schoppler to P number 4, as we're watching Louis Bailike doing what Louis Bailike does best, taking control of this race after a slightly difficult start and being in a very comfortable spot indeed. And yeah, Hingston just jumping a little bit too wide, getting out of shape and then getting rear-ended for good measure.
Yeah, that was Schoppler as well. That's what caused that front damage.
Yeah.
What did he punt? Was that Yang? Was that Dustin Yang that just got punted? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think Yang hit the wall by themselves.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, the very couple just uncharacteristic mistakes as you see everyone is struggling on track, and the dominoes, they fall awfully quickly when they do decide to fall. But you mentioned Bailike doing what they do best up at the front, and it is certainly a dominant performance. 8.5 seconds over the rest of the field. In fact, he is the only driver lapping in the 39s. No one else yet has managed that. I think besides our driver earlier that we had, of course, who took first position. So other than that, everyone else needs to pick up the pace just that little bit more.
Yeah, Ranieri among them. So Ranieri, I think, finds himself in a very comfortable position. He's not gonna catch up to Bailike, of course, at this point in time. 10-second gap between them, which is 3 minutes remaining. But he also has 6 seconds behind. So now just time to calm down a little bit. Time to get those easy laps down, so to speak. Never really easy, even if you're from Norway, which is a very famous rallycross country by itself. A 40.7, that lap time will do him just fine. It's just 10th slower than Riley Stasny behind him, and that will do him just fine. That's gonna be effectively Alessandro Ranieri, by the looks of things, making his way to the final, which is what all of these drivers want.
Exactly. Just get down into the final 8, get the maximum haul of points that you possibly can have on offer. That's the plan. Again, no plan survives first contact, but thankfully for Bailike, it looks like that it will. Stasny here drifting left and right. It's been a great recovery drive for Stasny, all things considering. I think they found themselves down at 8th at one point in time. They started in 3rd, so they've gone back to where they started. But it's been a real yo-yo performance here for the 118. But all things considering, a 3rd position, nothing to shake a stick at.
No, not at all. That's a great haul of points. While he'd be wishing he was able to get that 2nd place somehow, it's still, for a driver who is unfamiliar with this particular discipline, I do believe, as most of these drivers are, say for Garrett Maines and a couple of others, it's a what we call a defensive victory, in that you're making the best out of a bad situation. You're able to get more points than most of these drivers and are able to advance in this series, get a nice points haul, get your way up in the championship and move on to the next event. So that's the best you can hope for when it's not your favorite discipline. We're still seeing some close-up driving between Schoppler and Hingston fighting for 4th place as we come to the last laps.
And Schoppler here with Anthony all over it. One thing I wanted to point out as well is you watch them over the jump when it comes to that rallycross jump, and they had their wheels pointed perfectly straight on entry and perfectly straight on landing. One of the biggest causes to spins that we see is the fact that the drivers in the air will turn their wheel, and when they land, their wheels are pointed the wrong way, and then the car will go that direction when they land. You try to correct it, and then all of a sudden you have to correct it again and again, and well, by that time you're in the barrier very, very fast and hard, and with some repairs to be made. So these two doing a textbook display of how to go over the jump. Let's see it one more time as we go through onto the final lap. Into the tire wall for Mark Anthony Hinkson, and that is going to be well charged, done, and dusted, no doubt.
Yeah, he was surprised by the grip, it looks like. He was trying to sort of send it sideways down to the inside, but you don't want to use handbrake in that corner, really. It's very, very rarely used with these cars, actually. So he was sort of trying to handbrake it into the corner, send it to a little bit of a sideways slide, potentially up the inside of Schoppler, maybe taking that position away. And instead, what happened when you're on the tarmac, it didn't go sideways, it just gripped forward in terms of momentum due to the slow speed and just smacked him to the inside wall. And it looked pretty silly, but I know I have a hunch that he was trying to initiate a slide and just got it all sorts of out of shape. Fortunately for Hinkson, really, he is able to keep going in 5th place.
And the checkered flag has now fallen. Luis Bilecki takes home first position with Alessandro Rayner behind in second here. And there we can see back to the Daytona Ferris wheel of this lovely, lovely circuit in the infield here. And we'll get a look at our results while they do tally up and get to be official. Bilecki with a dominant performance through and throughout, all the way from the word go, they led, and to the checkered flag, they finished. The number 26, the dominant performance. Alessandro Ranieri, excuse me, I've been saying that wrong this whole time. My apologies, Alessandro. In second position with Riley Stasny in third, Anton Schopler in fourth with Mark Anthony Hinkson in fifth. Brandon M. William in sixth position with Dustin Yang in seventh, and rounding out eighth is going to be Patrick Hingston, unfortunately, with that crash that we saw earlier on. Lots of strifes, lots of trials and tribulations, and now as we get ready here to go to the next grid, Ozzy, we will be seeing the race actually already underway. It looks like down to the inside as they are bumping and banging doors throughout, and it's actually going to be Benjamin Nelson in the lead of this race with Kuzner in second. Stewart's there off in third position. Behind that, a big gap already forming to Shane Carter with Connor Henry. Wonder if there was a little contact that changed up the order here, but our top three getting away like a bat out of hell, and contact to the wall for Carter, and he is a chicane in the middle of the straight, and I don't think any drivers made it through. No, everyone made it through.
Yeah, Carter chair still stuck sideways, having to get that car around. Easier said than done when it's four-wheel drive. You can't just spin the rear wheels around as effectively. Nate Stewart not electing to take the choker, unlike Künzer, who is now taking the lead 10 with Matteo Künzer and taking the lead ahead of Ben Nelson there on the second place. So Künzer utilizing that strategy, wanting to get himself in some clean air and potentially showing off his pace. One thing I will say, by the way, as we've been watching these cars dart around, is I love the iRock team that they got going on in this series in PD Autosport, where everybody has their sort of signature color. You can tell the cars apart, but they have the same base livery, and it reminds me of International Race of Champions so much.
Oh, I absolutely love it. Here's that incident with Carter where he just drove into the wall, the back end clipped it, and okay, I was correct on my initial. Not many drivers made it through that one. I'm not sure who that was that got collected. I think that might have been Tannen Hilbsman maybe, or Deshawn's, one of the two made that little bit of contact. But right now, I am noticing something with Benjamin Nelson, and I think he's overdriving that car just a little bit too much, since I think he's dialed it back. And speaking of overdriving, Connor Henry, that car not quite showroom ready. Holy smokes, the back end there of Divine also clipping the wall.
Yeah, it's great racing here. You can see these guys. Well, it's not the optimal way to go around, but it provides for some great racing between Henry and Divine. Both kind of making a bit of a mistake. Henry having to correct the slide on the inside, and Divine going way too wide on the outside. And Duchesne, meanwhile, trying to get up to Hipsman for that third position. They're 9.5 seconds back from the leading duo of Künzer and Nelson. But as we've seen in these races, anything can still happen, and usually does. Hipsman there a little bit too sideways. Oh, and Duchesne hitting the curb on the inside, hitting and punting Hipsman around, and Hipsman then stuck in the middle of the track. I believe that Duchesne was initially trying to give the position back, then saw his compatriot, not the compatriot, but rather his fellow driver pointing the wrong way and said, screw it, I'm just gonna keep going.
Yeah, exactly, and that's you like to see the sportsmanship there on display, or at least the thought of it, where he knew he was wrong in that instance and said, I'd like to give it back, but it would have not been worth it by any stretch. We would have been in last position, unfortunately, and you know, right decision as well. When you do get spun by someone, sometimes you don't want them coming back out on track right next to you anyways, so you know, it's it's a double-edged sword that sometimes plays dividends for both. And oh my goodness, Brandon Devine racking up his frequent flyer miles as well.
Yeah, don't hit those curbs, guys. I thought it would be by now pretty obvious, but it's so easy to think, because you can take a little bit of them, as you can see, you can just take a little bit of a nip on the inside, you can just nip the curb, just ever so tiny bit, and it's gonna help the car turn. But once you hit it at the wrong angle, or you take it too greedily, take too much of it, then it's gonna come back and bite you. And these guys are trying to get lap time from anywhere they can, utilize all of the track and then some. So it can be very easy to think that, okay, I'm gonna take a bit more of a chance. But you either gain a tenth or you even gain 2/10 if you're able to nail that line absolutely right, or you're gonna lose 5 seconds by spinning around. So that's the chance you're taking.
End up at a different postal code because you accidentally took flight and, went to the local airport in the next county. No, Benjamin Nelson here, back to the front, or rather back to the back bumper of Kunzer. And looking like that recovery is on potentially. Lap times not quite in favor of Nelson just yet, but they were about dead even. Fastest lap overall still head by Matteo Kunzer at a 39.9. It's so weird not putting a 1 in front of these lap times. But no, just 39 seconds from the checkered flag to the checkered flag. Oh no.
Yep. Ooh, Mathieu Deschênes then. Seems like he had an issue over the jump, and that front end has looked better. That is certainly not how the factory made that car, or it was even originally race prepared. I have a hunch of what happened there, but I'm gonna wait and see if we potentially get another look of that. We will. Mathieu Deschênes then over the jump, a little bit too hot, landing sideways and just not able to get it turned around. It spins around, then gets back going. Don't run into the front of anybody, nope. Just fortunately really able to escape from any more damage there, but yeah, just going too hot into the jump. I feel like we've seen that before.
Yes, I think we're going to see that a few more times throughout the night as well. Still one more heat left to go and a finals after this one. I'm curious how that front end damage came about though on Deschênes' car, because it did look like it was good before the replay, so I do wonder if there was a little more contact than we missed. But Deschênes definitely has stared death in the face and said, give me your best shot, and it has aptly responded by punching him in the face repeatedly, and a lead change as well. No, that was a back marker. I got excited.
Yeah, but Nelson isn't that far back from the lead actually. Kunzer and Nelson, the gap is only like 2.5 seconds. It of course changes a little bit around on our live timing due to the nature of the track. That's why it keeps bouncing, changing half a second every now and then due to the relative speed change, rallycross feature, I'd like to say. But you can see Kunzer there doing a very consistent line, and that is exactly what you want to see. You can just listen in. He's short shifting, exactly what you're supposed to do on the gravel, taking a very conservative line, tear into the hairpin, getting on the power nice and early, following a tight line. And if you're new to this discipline, that is exactly the best way to go about things. Don't try and do too much, don't try to be a hero, don't try to send it sideways like you see the likes of Travis Pastrana do, or even if you're an old school guy, the likes of Matti Alamäki do back in the 80s and 90s. Just keep a consistent line, that will work out the best.
Oh no, speaking of consistent lines, Connor Henry has put it in the wrong way. What just happened? I'm pretty sure he was caught looking at an accident is what I think just happened. Is he tunnel visioned on the accident and drove into the wall, or maybe got on the throttle too early, but that was completely unforced. And now Matteo Kunzer is right on the back bumper of him, which shouldn't play any role. There's going to be a blue flag waving for him, and Kunzer shouldn't have too many issues getting by. There he goes, in fact. But that, for Henry, was not quite the line that he was looking for.
No, not at all, not at all. And it can happen so easy once you you zone into a certain line. Oh, whoa, that could have been so disastrous. You saw number 57, then Divine getting sideways over the jump, or the landing of the jump, just so close to spinning around, and you saw the leader, Kunzer, going over the jump, and had Divine spun around there. Nothing that Kunzer could have done to avoid that accident, so we're so lucky that didn't end up so much worse.
Oh man, Henry had a really good shot catching back up to Divine there after that little mistake, but it seems like Brandon has the pace to really stay ahead. In fact, he's taking his Joker lap on this one, and that should be, I think, his final Joker lap as well. Connor Henry might still have one in the bag here. but everyone else, I think, has made their way through and is looking at Matteo Kunzer here. I think he's just going to be cruising his way to victory, like you said, just keeping that line as textbook as can be, not putting a wheel wrong, and not finding yourself facing the barrier, because right now, there's only 5.5 seconds separating him and Nelson.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't afford to do any major mistakes at this point, and Kunzer a bit fortunate to get away from that a little bit of melee with the back markers, but also he deserves it. He's been the fastest driver in this final heat so far. Nicely over the jump there, just calculating, hit the landing just about, don't end up in the flat, and you're golden. And don't put a wheel wrong, obviously. Here you can see Nelson then optimizing his style, as we saw another spinner there. That was Divine, I believe, and getting passed by Henry.
Yeah, Divine struggling in the closing sectors, and there we see it again. I'm wondering, is this a setup issue? Is this a tire issue? Is there a puncture? What is going on? Is it mental? Is Divine just falling apart mentally? Whatever is happening, it needs to get underway. Well, I was gonna say it needs to get under wraps quickly. There's only 20 seconds left to go. I think it's a little bit late.
Yeah, Kunzer is starting his final lap. It could be a bit of damage as well. From like early on, you get a bad jump. You get a bad jump, as I get my words in order. Wow. So you get a bad jump, and it sort of messes up with your suspension. You get your alignment wrong, and the car can be, even if we don't see it, there can be some camber, some toe angle that is all out of whack. And that makes the car more difficult to drive in certain corners, certain weak transition situations, for example.
Makes sense. One driver that didn't have any issues when it comes to handling or control on track or placing it wheel wrong whatsoever was this man on your screen, Matteo Kunzer. He takes home P1 with relative ease here in Heat 3. Benjamin Nelson also will move on through into the finals and taking home second position by about 7.5 seconds. Behind that, everybody else following suit, and a good haul of points, all things considering, for Deschênes, because he still is somehow in third position.
Yeah, after all that was said and done, Mathieu Deschênes finishing the Heat 4 in third position and able to, well, not able to get on the podium, because that's given only after the final, but still able to get a good points haul, as you said. And I believe we have our final grid as a result of that, or our drivers who advanced to the finals. And, well, really it's Garrett Main's race to lose, as it looked like from the heats, as we take a look at the final results from heat number 4.
Yes, Luis Bellicchi takes home victory, commandingly so, over Alessandro Ranieri. Wait a second, this is previous, isn't it? Riley Stanceny in P3, Anton Schopler in 4th, with Mark Anthony Hickson in 5th. We've already done these, so these were the previous. So this was Heat 3's results. For Heat 4, hopefully we can get those pulled. Here we go. Matteo Kunzer taking home victory in 1st, with Benjamin Nelson in 2nd, Matthew Deschênes in 3rd, with Brandon Devine in 4th, Tannen Hibschman in 5th, Connor Henry in 6th, Nate Stewart's in 7th, and rounding out last but not least is going to be Cheyenne Carter. No, yep. Chauncey Carter. My apologies.
Yeah, there we go, and you can see all the amusement thingies, the Ferris wheel and the carousel on the infield. And here you can see the starting grid 10 for our final. Garrett Main starting on the pole position. Alongside him will be Daniel Falkingham. Louis Bailike 10 starting third, with Matteo Kunzer fourth, and Jacob Bradley in 5th position. Andy Trupiano in 6th, Alessandro Ranieri in 7th, and Benjamin Nelson rounding out your 8 driver grid. And this is it. This is for guts. This is for glory.
This is the top 8 of the best, the top 2 out of each heat, all put together and going to be giving a run for their money. Now, I know your prediction going into this one, Garrett Mains, I would assume, is going to be the man on your roster. But for me, Luis Bellicchi, I think, is an underdog shot here tonight. Looking at the lap times alone from the race pace, I think Bellicchi has a good shot to give Mains a run for his money in this one.
Yeah, I mean, the track does progress a little bit throughout the heats, but you're right, Bailike was surprisingly fast, surprisingly consistent, given a relative lack of experience compared to Mains. So if he can get his way close to Mains right from the get-go, we might see a battle out of it, especially if he's able to utilize those chokers well. and get in front of Mains even for a lap and two. And you have to remember, Mains is not immune to mistakes as well. He's less likely to make them, but he's not immune to them. And we've seen how many victims that jump and that protruding wall right after it has taken already.
Absolutely. Now, as everyone gets ready, the nerves at their all-time high as we go green, or get ready to go green here in Daytona Beach, Florida. A track which, by the way, I don't think you've had the chance to have this stat put on you yet. But do you happen to know how many bird species are in the area here? We have to do this quickly, I know.
What?
Yes, so in case you were curious, there are roughly 300 to 350 different bird species observed in the area here of Daytona Beach, some of which including sandpipers, plovers, wood storks, and all the way up to peregrine falcons. But it looks like, folks, I think it's time to get ready here. The gridding should be about done and dusted. And we're going to be underway racing here momentarily. The time has started counting. The cars are going to be revving. And we will go green, 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 and it's going to be 3 abreast down to the first braking zone. Bellicki, is he going to have the advantage? It's going to be Falkingham on the outside, and in the middle of the sandwich is going to be Mains. Now everyone through, green flag running, and Garrett Mains actually takes the lead through the opening jump, and it's chaos, contact, calamity, rolling down the street as everybody makes it through except for Kunzer. No, Nelson, excuse me, was taken out, punted every which way, and that Beetle now looks more like a Mini Cooper.
Yeah, and Günther went upside down. He rolled and he got back going. He did just like Colin McRae back in the day in X Games Rallycross. That was amazing. Let's see if Günther can then recover from that one. I don't think the car should be too badly damaged, actually. The roll looks pretty soft, but it's still quite an experience to roll right on lap 1 and somehow be only 2 seconds behind the guy next to you.
And speaking of 2 seconds, Garrett Mains has pulled 2 seconds over the rest of the field by the end of lap 1. Bellicki needs to give it their best shot and put their foot forward right now if there's any chance to catch up with the man that we predicted would be on top here for tonight. Garrett Mains has plenty of rallycross experience, and he is showing that on display for us tonight. But a man down a little bit further, Benjamin Nelson, he is in the mix right now, trying to get the move done onto Ranieri. But is he going to find any semblance of day? No, he has to back out, wait for his next chance. In fact, it looks like he's taking the Joker lap to get that position for free, so that will gain him the position over Nelson, but he will obviously eventually have Nelson taking his Joker lap as well.
Yeah, so 2 Jokers here and a 15-minute final heat, mind you. So it's a bit of a longer race, and even consistency becomes even more important. You're starting to see more and more rallycross-style racing now. The weak have been weeded out, so to speak. Nobody's weak in this series, but everybody else weeded out. Now we have the 8 best drivers, and they're showcasing their ability here at Daytona Rallycross Circuit. Jacob Bradley there on display right now, trying to catch up to Falkingham, trying to keep Drew Piano behind him. So it's a great 3-4 car battle that is slowly developing out here. You saw Günther there taking his Joker. He was the man who rolled earlier, and I think that was Bailike. That's Bailike sideways.
Oh no, Bailike Luis has to get it back around. It's not working out well. He's slipping and sliding every which way right now and just trying to get the car facing the correct direction. Devastation for the man that I picked to win this race, and now down in last position. Bellicki, my apologies, commentator's curse. You can blame me for that one. Back though to the battles at hand right now, which is, by the way, in case you were curious, a 6-way fight as it stands. Falkingham, Bradley, Kunzer, Nelson, Tripino, and Ranieri all in the mix right now, trying to battle for second position.
Yeah, and if you're wondering about those lap times, by the way, the track gets sort of resurfaced. Oh, and there's a contact between Trupiano and Kunzer. Then at the landing of the jump, Kunzer is coming a little bit hotter at the end of the jump, had more speed, no time to react, hit the rear, and as a result of that is able to get the position now. Is Trupiano gonna be able to hold on to it? Tries to defend heavily on the inside, block the exit and does so, but that's a bit clumsy, mate.
That's a very rude block from Cipriano, and Ranieri is going to be rather upset. Now, Kunzer, you can clearly see this is a man driving with his heart on his sleeve as we go back to the jump, and this is the roll that I actually was about to bring up. So this was lap 1, what cost him his strife, and all the way down to the bottom from 5th position, a single roll. He only saw sky ground 1 time, so all things considered, not the worst roll we've ever seen, but it was a bit of damage to be picked up, and he's back into 5th already.
He was so fortunate nobody was hitting him on the landing of that jump. Everybody able to avoid him for any secondary contacts, and also a great display of skill by these drivers. They're all trying to get used to rallycross. It's lap 1, you're going over the jump, and they were still somehow able to react quickly enough, to anticipate the situation quickly enough, and realize that, okay, the last thing I want to do is to hit that rolling car. And that's just a great moment, and because of that, Kunzer is still able to fight for positions, and because of that, nobody else was too badly involved in that particular shenanigan either, as we saw there. Kunzer getting very wide once again over the rough stuff.
Yeah, and Cipriano there also having his struggles through the jump, almost got out of shape in 2 different occasions. Almost got out of shape on the jump and then almost got out of shape on the curb. But no harm being played just yet. 6th position ahead of him right now is Belicki, who we know started up in 3rd position and since had that incident on lap 2, I think it was, putting him all the way back down into 6th position. But also for 2nd, this isn't for a position to move on through. The top 2 are not the positions that we care about. Every position matters now, and it's going to be down to points on offer. Bradley, he still wants the top 2, but a podium, nothing to shake a stick at. You just don't want to throw it away right now.
No, not at all. And you can see Bradley just initiating a bit of slide with the handbrake, doing it very well. Like at the end of the turn, just you're done braking already. You just get a little bit of rotation with that handbrake at the exit of the corner. Working out well for Bradley, but having to lift off the throttle a little bit on that sweeping straight line and losing some ground to Folkingham. You can see on the top of their picture as well, Matteo Kunzer in a great fight with Benjamin Nelson, sorry.
And 2 battles simultaneously right now, though I'm keeping every eye right now onto Folkingham because he seems weak. If I'm Jacob Bradley, I think I'm smelling some blood in the water right now, and it's just about keeping the car under control. Look at how strong he is there through the hairpin as well. I think Jacob Bradley right now is just trying to find where his opponent is weakest and where he can actually make that move stick and send. Looking at lap times, Bradley this time around a 41.6 compared to a 41.5 of Folkingham, so nearly dead even on pace. I think Bradley is just kind of being held up right now by the proverbial cork in the bottle of Folkingham.
Yeah.
Oh!
That was nice. That wasn't quite Dominic Hasek, but maybe Martin Brodeur.
I'll take your word for it. That was epic. That's all I know.
Oh, ice hockey. But so Jacob Bradley 10 looks to be taking a bit of a tighter line through that hairpin. We've been following him through a couple of laps, and I can now say safely that it's not a one-time thing. He looks to be taking a tighter line, which works for him at the initial braking and initial turn-in, but then Folkingham is able to get that power down a little bit better on the outside line, get just a touch better straight line speed onto the next straight. But if Bradley is used to that tight line, then that will potentially work to his advantage once the time comes to shove, once the time comes to actually overtake Daniel Folkingham. Now, it must be said that at least I don't have a screen with me that shows the amount of choker laps they have left, so that's one thing to be taken into consideration as well. But if we're talking about pure on-track racing and discounting the chokers, then Bradley might have that little bit of an ace up his sleeve if he can get close enough.
Yeah, and also, I just wanted to mention one thing that we haven't necessarily talked about for the past, 7.5 minutes. We have a leader in this race. His name's Garrett Maines, and he's currently leading by 15 seconds. There he is, man on your screen. Doing a great job, I think, at this point. It's going to be pretty hard-pressed to find him losing any ground at this stage, and this should put him in the lead of the championship as well, moving into round 3. So Garrett, well, everything's coming up Garrett right now.
Yeah, it is. Garrett Maines 10. I think it's safe to say Garrett Maines is good at this rallycross thing.
Can we? Okay, I really want to just stick here with Garrett Maines.
I know it's a hot take,
there's,
but yeah.
There's another, yeah. But the way that, first off, the way that he takes this corner, but the way that he lands the jump it blows my mind, because every time I see him land, I think he's going sideways, and he's going sideways, but he's intentionally going sideways, aiming at the next corner. A lot of drivers, they land straight. That's what I mentioned. It's the best, take the safest way, I should say, not the best, but it's the safest way to take a jump. Watch this landing. Look at this Scandi flick into the corner, lands it, wheel sideways,
yep.
Chuck it into the left-hander, chuck it into the right-hander, maybe a little over rotation there, but either way, this is somebody who has a tremendous amount of talent.
Yeah, and tremendous amount of skill and experience as well. Talent is part of it, of course it is. Garrett Maines is a very talented driver, but most importantly, he's a very skilled and experienced driver in a sense that it is that talent that has been honed into a diamond over the course of time. So how he does that is that he initiates the turn-in, makes sure not to turn during the takeoff of the jump, that the car is straight, and then immediately when he lands, he gets that flick of the turn-in already to the left without doing too much. He knows exactly how the car behaves, and in a lot of ways he's just aiming the car into the jump. He's taking aim, flying over the hill, and then just continuing as he lands right away. He's not doing anything extra. He knows the car, he knows how to distribute the weight, he knows how to get the grip down. It's in a lot of ways, it is a similar technique that you use in rallying, talking about like point-to-point rallying in places like in Finland, for example, where I'm from. So in case somebody didn't figure it out already, you have a lot of stages where you have a lot of jumps and you have a lot of crests that head over the corners. And those drivers, what they have to do, they have to aim the car similarly over the crest and over the jump in order to achieve the best stage time, in order to keep up the speed. And it requires sort of this aiming thing that you got going on, as well as an innate understanding of the physics of the car.
Yeah, very similar to motocross for anyone that on the state side that's or even anywhere else in the world that rides, for example, quads and motorcycles. That's more my speed. That's where I started my motorsport career, was on quads and motorcycles at the age of 3, doing very similar to this actually, doing TT jumps and things of that nature. And yeah, it's tough when it comes down to it. And even I couldn't imagine doing it with a 2,000-pound car, or I think these things coming up a little bit lighter than 2,000 pounds, but either way, of course, still a tremendous amount of weight going into the air and then crashing back down to the surface. And you have to do that for 15 minutes straight.
Yeah, it's not easy. Not easy at all, and you can see the difference between Maines and Folkingham, for example, over the champ, where Daniel takes it a little bit easier, wants to land earlier and get an easier landing, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you don't have that experience that Garrett Maines has, and very few people do, then it's a very consistent way to do it. Sure, you lose a tenth or two, but it's much better than spinning around, and look how it's working out for him. Daniel Folkingham just able to avoid mistakes, being very consistent, very stable, still able to keep Jacob Bradley behind him.
Yeah, it's been nothing but consistent, and Jacob Bradley, I mentioned it earlier, he looks like he does want to be overdriving that car just a little bit. I think he is trying to keep up right now with Folkingham rather than trying to overtake. Now, obviously, he still would like to make that move, and as we come down into the hairpin, he's not quite close enough, slipping out a little wide there. You really got to keep it under wraps. You can see, thinks about it to the inside, but gets that handbrake on, and then back on the accelerator onto what most likely will be, no, it's not going to be the penultimate lap. This will be the third to last lap, more than likely, here this time around. And Folkingham, pretty comfortable, I would say, right now, barring any mistakes. I'm not sure Bradley has the pace to make the move, but again, anything can happen in racing, and it normally does.
Yep, and that's really one thing to keep in mind, especially as the pressure starts to mount. I think Bradley will sooner rather than later start to look for those unnerving late braking moves. He's not gonna be able to overtake him from that distance, but what he's gonna do is be active on the mirrors. You can see it here on the hairpin. Bradley just trying to brake a little bit later and was a little bit sideways once again with that flick of the handbrake, but losing ground over the straight line. So that's not the way to do it. He wants to nail in a good lap here, get right up to the tailpipe of Folkingham, and then just look up the inside and see what Folkingham does in defense. and work his way from there. That's really the way to go from here, and he's a little bit closer now. He's a bit better over the jump, taking a bit more of a chance, so we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, let's see, is he going to set that switchback attempt up into the hairpin, potentially? But it's covered off very well from Falkingham, even if it was two side, but even still, even if he was to nail the corner perfectly, there was no chance. Falkingham parked it dead center of the road and covered the switchback off wonderfully. Now, Bradley, down to the penultimate lap. It's getting to the wire at this stage, and he needs to find some form of move. Where does he do it? He doesn't look strong in the hairpin. He doesn't look necessarily strong in the first corner. I think at this point he is really just waiting for a little mistake out of Falkingham, but or is it him that cracks first? Not quite this time. Picked up a little bit of air over the curb, but he's got to be so careful.
Yeah, he has, and I believe what he's looking for in American terms is a Hail Mary.
Yeah. Let's see, can he Hail Mary it to the end zone or into the first corner? No, he's going to actually have a, well, that's going to be the writing on the walls more than likely, actually, as Falkingham still had a Joker lap to his name, and now the gap is not too much to worry about. Falkingham did an excellent job of managing the pace from behind, and now it's Garrett Maines who takes home the checkered flag. He nearly lapped the entire field, 25 seconds to the next driver, and Garrett Maines is here to take victory, and take it in style he does.
Bravo, Garrett Maines. I know he had the advantage heading into this event with his vast rallycross experience, but don't discount the pressure that it also gives you. When you're a clear favorite, you got that #1 in your car, you're the #1 in everybody's mind in this discipline, it can be so difficult to actually make it work. And there you can see Falkingham taking second place just ahead of Bradley, who also had one Joker remaining, just utilizing it a bit too late.
Indeed, and that will be the, why didn't he utilize it a lot before? That's a great question, but the world will never know, and the results are now set in stone. Daytona Rally Course has come to a conclusion, and my goodness, what a race it was. Here are your results for the finals, and Garrett Maines, 25 seconds to the rest of the field over Daniel Falkingham in second. Jacob Bradley taking home third. A lovely ding-dong battle from the two. Matteo Kunzer with a recovery drive up to fourth position, despite the fact that that man was upside down at one point in time during this race. He finished in fourth, nothing to be disappointed with. Luis Belicki also had their trials and tribulations early on, finishing fifth position, started in third. Benjamin Nelson down into sixth, Andy Trupiano into seventh, and last but not least, Alessandro Ranieri for P8, and one lap down to the rest of the field. But my goodness, Ozzy, what a race to break down between all four different heats, and of course the finals. The finals really not letting us down at all.
No, not at all. You saw very much the best of rallycross action, and why it's such a great discipline. You got short, action-packed races, and you have all sorts of trials and tribulations that the drivers will have to manage. And I believe that you had a question about that choker earlier. Well, I believe we are joined by a man who can potentially answer it.
Yes, indeed. We're joined by Mr. Bradley himself, our third place finisher tonight, Jacob Bradley. Jacob, how are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good after that race.
Exciting battle all the way throughout, you and Falkingham. Basically, well, you were unfortunately the new license plate of Falkingham, and you couldn't quite change it around and be the hood ornament that you were looking for. We did have a couple questions as well. So on the final laps, or down to the penultimate lap, we noticed that both you and Falkingham had their Joker laps, and Falkingham took his Joker lap one lap before you. What was the thought process, I guess, down to the end?
I knew that a lot of people in the heats had struggled in the first sector right after the Joker, and I didn't want to get jumped immediately, so I was hoping that he would take it first, and then I could kind of take advantage of if he made a mistake there. It was going to be really hard to pass him because we were right on top of each other. We had similar pace. It was a really fun battle, but ultimately he didn't make a mistake, and he had to come home with a third.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I noticed a very similar where you were all over him at times, especially down into the hairpin where you were giving him a run for his money, but he would just park it dead center of the track. You might run a little bit wide, and it just wasn't working out, unfortunately. But all the way around, a ding-dong performance between the two of you. And third place, nothing to be disappointed in, that's for sure.
Definitely, especially after week one. I think I was involved about every accident in week one, so this is definitely a much better performance and a much better week.
Absolutely. And as we get ready to move on to round 3, how are you feeling looking forward?
Definitely gonna hope to do better as we get more experience. I know I may not have as much as some of the top guys here, but if I keep knocking down a couple top 5s, then I'll feel pretty good about myself.
Awesome. Well, Jacob, is there anyone here before we do move on tonight that you would like to thank for your third place finish here in the finals?
I want to thank PT Autosport for putting on the league, everybody who does all of that. I want to thank you guys for doing the broadcast. I want to thank everybody watching at home.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bradley, for joining us, Jacob. And also, of course, good luck in your next rounds. Jacob Bradley, everybody, your third place finisher here for the final race. Ozzy, I'm hoping here, has had a chance to catch up with Mr. Daniel Falkingham as well.
Yep, being able to do what Jacob Bradley couldn't quite manage and catch up to Daniel Falkingham. Daniel, first of all, we saw a great final heat from you. We enjoyed watching that battle, and rest assured we're gonna talk about that soon. But first of all, I want to get your initial reaction on what did you think when you saw today's track and car combo?
My first thought was a good win, Garrett Maines, because I remember watching him when he would do this stuff as a pro, and I knew I was cooked right from the beginning in terms of like winning the outright event. But I mean, I do what I always do. I go in, try my best, no matter what combo they throw at us. And I think safe to say we had a pretty good showing today. But definitely I was caught off guard because like I really don't do this stuff. Like I'm just a noble guy, man. But yeah, this was definitely new to me. I mean, I've done a little bit of rallycross in the past, but it's been like years since I've done it. So definitely had to kind of relearn the ropes there. And Gary definitely gave me some good advice too of what to do and what not to do. So very thankful for him for some of the tips and tricks. But overall, definitely caught me off guard. But I think we did the best we could today, and we came out with a great result.
Yeah, that's an understatement and a half, really. I mean, it was really the best anyone else, bar Garrett Maines, could manage today, which is second place, and you sound very happy with that, and you have every right to be. So, talk us through that battle. You were pretty much nose to tail there with Jacob Bradley all throughout the final. So you were ahead, which is a position not very many drivers feel comfortable in. You'd rather be attacking than defending. So what was your thought process? Were you just trying to essentially hit your marks and stay consistent throughout the race, or did you have to also pay attention to what Jacob was doing?
Yeah, pretty much me being ahead. Well, the best part is I could actually see. I didn't have any like dirt getting thrown up in my face, and then also being able to like be ahead, like I could see, like I could just hit my marks. Because as you saw, like I was running third at the start of this race and the heat race, and both times a few laps in, the guy in front of me would make a mistake. It was like whether it was like Lewis or whether it was someone else, but yeah, and that's what really opened the door for me. I just had to keep the car on the racetrack, keep all four wheels pointed straight, and just be on my way, because there was two guys in front of me that made a mistake, and I knew like I couldn't do that because it's very easy to do. Like it's very easy to slip up in a car and track like this. So I knew what I had to do just to hold off Jacob, because like Jacob, he was keeping me honest, and I really had to plan out when I could use my Joker laps, and thankfully I think I used them to great perfection right there. So but no, like shout out to Jacob. He kept me honest, he kept me on my toes, and applying the pressure, and that just forced me to just go to work and to make sure I could keep things straight, because like it was very easy to make mistakes out there. But definitely glad we could not make as many mistakes as a lot of other people here, but it was definitely good fun.
Yeah, and now you got a 2-week gap until round number 3, and then we'll be at the halfway point of the championship. So after this one, I believe that you're even more excited for the rest of the season, no?
Absolutely, man. Like I was definitely excited when the season started, because like I said, we don't know what to expect going into these races. I was very excited what we had the last round at New Hampshire, because that is actually my home racetrack. But definitely, I didn't have a great showing in that first round when it was a round I was really hoping to do well. So definitely having a great result like this keeps my spirits up to go just to move forward and see what else is going to be coming for the rest of the season, because obviously there's still a lot of points out there to go get, and we're way down further in the points than I wanted to coming in. So hopefully with this good result today, we can get up there in the points and maybe make a late run for this, because there's still plenty of points out there to go get. So definitely looking forward to what's going to happen in 2 weeks' time.
Absolutely love your attitude. Love talking to you, man. Let's hope we can talk again in 2 weeks' time. That was Daniel Falkingham, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
And
next up,
last-
Mike. Yeah.
Yes,
Cool.
indeed. Last but not least is what I was going to say. We have Garrett Maines. Garrett, first off, welcome and congratulations for your dominant victory here tonight.
Thank you.
Really not much to talk about for the final race, just to be completely honest. There's a couple things that I did write down that I do want to mention, though, and part of that is just your driving style. You know, obviously, coming into this, you have more experience than the rest of the field. I think everyone is aware of that, but the way that you approach jumps just blows my mind. I was talking about it on the broadcast, and we had a nice little onboard view, but the way that you attack them in such an aggressive manner is so entertaining to watch, and I'm just curious. I mean, obviously, practice plays a role, but what has led you to get to that level?
You know, it's changed a lot since I used to do this. I actually went back and looked, because over the last 4 years, I've run a total of 40 rallycross races, which let's just say that's significantly less than I used to when the Pro Series was around. But this was my favorite car, and they nerfed it into oblivion. So this has been a long time since I've run this in a competitive race, but it's good to be back. I've always loved the Beetle. The way that you jump, though, is just not the same as it used to be. I kind of had to figure out the timing, and like the biggest thing is here, because you're in the dirt and you're flicking to the right and then back to the left. You have to control how far you flick back to the left, because you gotta hit the jump, aim slightly left, so that it'll straighten back out, because it always wants to fling right. The extra weight that we had with the fuel was throwing me for a loop a little bit, but yeah, it was weird. That was my big fear, going from the heat race to the feature is like worn track. One, I haven't run on a worn track in probably 6 years, not anything like that. And so like the way you have to approach a jump was totally different. I don't know if you noticed that, but like I was hitting it almost perfectly straight, because if you didn't, you were carrying so much speed you wouldn't land on the pad at all. And so it was a bit of a change, but it was a lot of fun overall. I mean, I kind of figured it was just going to be don't screw it up. And I was blinking like crazy, and my quality dropped to like 60. My stream dropped. I'm like, if I drop out of this race leading, that would be so disappointing. So I was a little stressed the whole first heat, because it really wasn't in my hands. There's nothing I could do if that happened. So, really cool to be able to bring it home. I was hoping to be able to do it last race, but this makes up for it. I was really happy to hear we were doing some rallycross. Been a long time coming, and really happy to get the win for Wing and Water Technologies. Really happy they came on board this season, and proud to be able to bring them to victory lane in this series. So it's good day for us.
Absolutely. And, talking a bit about the Heat 1, because I think that was the more race that there were kind of a couple question marks that got thrown up as well, is, of course, you had a couple back markers that you almost ran into. You didn't, but you almost did. How did that play a role as well out there on track, dealing with some of the cars that had incidents earlier on and trying to make it by them in the chaos?
I mean, for the most part, lap cars were pretty courteous. We had a few that were just like straight up out of control, and I knew when they came across the track in front of me, it was not intentional. But I was also like not out of control in that moment. So had I had to make an evasive maneuver, I mean, they were kind of perpendicular to the racetrack, so I was gonna have to like take a slowdown. But I also wasn't really concerned if that did occur. I felt like I had some time to spare, so it was better than barreling into it and ending my race. But for the most part, everybody was, courteous and moving out of the way if they were under control. And, it was really nice. There was a lot of respect in this race. And thankfully, I got a good launch. I mean, this is one of the rare occasions you don't see everybody go bowling in the freaking first corner. So, it was nice to see.
No, it really was. It was an entertaining race from the word go. And of course, Garrett, you didn't quite have the most traction. All things considered, it was a walk-away grand slam performance, which I'm sure you are quite happy to, which now you will be, I'm pretty sure, just if maths does support me on my napkin here. I think you'll be leading the championship heading on into round 3, which I'm sure you're going to be very excited about. And of course, moving on to round 3, I'm sure you're very excited about this championship as well, getting renewed with some rallycross in this round.
Oh, absolutely. I really needed, to get a points jump. I felt like, there are a lot of things that I am strong at, but I felt like, road course, for example, is the one thing that I feel like there's a lot of people that are just as good, if not have an edge, just because I don't know as many of the tracks. Probably half the courses, honestly, I just haven't been on. And so learning in 30 minutes versus somebody that, races the pro road course circuit might yield a bit of a advantage for him, just like it did today for me in the rallycross stuff. So, nice to get a jump here in the points, and hopefully we can just be consistent the rest of the season and get what we need to bring it home. But just, really it's important to just stay on top of your game and get the best results you can. And I feel like that's kind of where I've been the first, 3 rounds of count qualifying. So I'm just happy with that and really thankful to be able to got it done today.
Awesome. Well, is there anyone, Garrett, here before we do let you go and conclude this one for tonight? Is there anyone that you'd like to thank for your victory here on Daytona?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to give a huge shout out again to Wig and Water Technologies for coming on board this year. Really excited to be able to do some cool stuff on the sim and in real life with them this year. So big news on that coming up soon. Also, thank you to Scott at MCU Body, Linux, and also shout out to Dan. I didn't expect to to have 2 oval guys leading on the rallycross course, but that's a cool little extra there.
Absolutely. Little props to Mr. Daniel Falkingham finishing in P2 tonight, but then, of course, Garrett here taking victory in a dominant fashion. Garrett, thank you very much for taking part in this round, and I'm really looking forward to what you're going to deliver here in the future. Have a great rest of your day.
Appreciate it. You too. Thanks.
And with that, folks, we're going to be wrapping it up. Ozzy, is there any final words that you'd like to have on this one tonight?
Well, not too many, really. We saw great rallycross action, and if anybody wants to get into rallycross racing, then please do. Either here on iRacing service, as you can see, we have great tracks. We have many tracks in offer, or in real life as well. There's, especially if you're watching this from Europe, there's local rallycross scene, there's folk racing scene. It's a great form of motorsports. Get into it. Other than that, it was fun to watch.
Absolutely. The pleasure was mine. And of course, I do hope everyone, well, first off, I want to thank everyone behind the scenes here tonight. Of course, a massive thank you to Ozzy for being alongside me, Mike Noss, Daniel Costello as the director, which sort of turned into Christian Deploy as well, and cameras provided by Dougie Beard. On that, folks, I hope everybody has a lovely evening, afternoon, or morning, wherever you are in this fine world. Stay safe, and we'll see you on track.